pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for attending this regularly scheduled City Council meeting. Okay, could you call the roll?
Harold.
Here.
Hollenbaugh.
Here.
Leontis.
Here.
Phipps.
Here.
Robinette.
Here.
Roland.
Here.
Zanfordino.
Here.
Okay. Prior to the meeting, the minutes from our meeting on February 18th were distributed. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Okay. Hearing none.
So moved.
Well,
Second.
What did we move?
to approve the minutes. Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes, say yay.
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 Opposed, say nay. The minutes stand approved. Good job, minutes. Okay, correspondence. Kay, what do you got?
Yes, I have two items from the Finance Director, Brian Bruchong. First is the financial budget summary report for the month of January 2020 that was distributed to you prior to the meeting. And then also there was a listing of budget transfers distributed to you prior to the meeting for the month of March, and those require your approval.
Okay. Does anyone move to approve the budget transfer?
I will move to approve the budget
And I will
transfers.
second.
All right. Properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. They are transferred.
And I also have to note for the record from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control is a transfer of a liquor permit from Worcester Street Pub doing business as Shots Incorporated at 309 South Main Street to EDP Cafe LLC, and it is just a transfer.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you. That brings us to lobby visitations. Has anyone signed up for lobby visitation?
No special record.
Yeah.
There are none.
The first one is David Flagger.
Please state your name and address.
My name is David Flieger, live at 325 North Prospect, and I'd like to, hello council members, Mr. Mayor, and everyone here. I'd like to address the council and talk about the occupancy of housing. I know that the city was sued, Yoder et al. Versus Bowling Green, and we lost. Part of the community action plan that the city had done addressed the housing stock in the neighborhoods that are close to the university and how rental properties are affecting those areas. I recently took a look at the good neighbor policy, or the good neighbor guide, that the city has on their website. And one of the things that it addressed was residential housing, or what they call single-family dwellings, and that if the neighbor's building appears to have more than allowed for single-family dwellings, that kind of struck me as odd. First of all, based on the recent court case, Yoder et al., Bowling Green, was told that they could no longer enforce the ordinances that restricted more than 3 unrelated occupants in a residence. Judge Net found that the ordinances are to be arbitrary, that the city wasn't enforcing equally based on if it was just a resident, rental resident, or if it was owner occupied, and if they were related, unrelated. So he found it to be arbitrary. And the ordinances that he said they could no longer enforce were 150.19, 150.20, and 150.03. That gives the 150.03 gives the definitions of single-family dwellings, what constitutes a family. With that said, I would like to ask a few questions and request clarification on a few additional items. First, what is meant by appears to have more residents? That's how can someone really know what that means, okay? So if you're gonna put out a guide to the community of how to be a good neighbor and what we should be looking at, it needs to be a little bit more definitive to us. Secondly would be who is responsible for determining that and how is it measured? So is it the city that's going to take a look at that? Is the community, the people that live near there? Okay. And how are they measuring that? Are they using by cars? Is it by registered somewhere so that they state that we have 5 people residing in this house? It's really not very clear at all. And third, number 3 is the city actively looking for those types of situations, or again, is that being left up to the community and to try to determine this? Finally, is there a plan on the city's part to update and codify the ordinances that we were told could no longer be enforced? If we wait any longer to adopt an ordinance that would prevent the over-occupancy, we will be back in the same situation that we were before the lawsuit. We would end up with houses that were being grandfathered again, and again, falling back into where it's arbitrary on the enforcement. Okay. One good thing that did come out of the lawsuit was that Judge Knapp did find that Bowling Green is enforcing occupancy based on family relationship and versus space. What they mean by space is how many rooms are that they can be occupied to sleep in. If we took our ordinance and applied that, what Judge Knapp said, we would probably alleviate many of the over-occupancy problems. Judge Knapp recommended that we limit the number of occupants to the number of bedrooms. He further stated that the number of bedrooms be determined by the plans that were originally submitted or the plans that were subsequently altered with legal permits from the building official. What's important about that phrase that he stated for the community, in that lawsuit, is that based on what is on the Wood County Auditor site, if it says it's a 2-bedroom home, it is a 2-bedroom home, unless they've pulled the proper permits to modify it, add an addition, or to split up another room, allowing it to go to 2, 3, 4, or whatever that may be. However, he further goes on to state, additionally, he states that under no circumstances shall dining rooms, living rooms, kitchens, or any other space or any space other than designated bedrooms be counted as bedrooms for the purpose of this order. Okay? And to me, that's very important, because unless you really know how that house has been cut up, and there are cases, we don't go in and see them all because we have no mechanism to do that, that they have taken those areas and turned them into bedrooms, or taken a basement, turned it into bedrooms without the proper egress areas. I would like to point out 2 properties that seem to have over occupancy. I am using these two because I pass by them on a daily basis to go to work. These are just 2 that are just along my route, and this is the reason I'm using them. First, 325, 329 North Enterprise. One thing I'd like to point out, 329 North Enterprise, even though there's a mailbox there and you can see it on Google Earth, it doesn't show up on the auditor's website. Only 325 shows up. Okay. This is a duplex that on most days has a minimum of 5 cars parked there. And on some days more, because they park on the grass if there's not acceptable parking for them there or a parking spot for them. On the Wood County Auditor's site, it was purchased in July of 2019, and it is listed as a 2-family dwelling owner occupied. Find that kind of odd, but anyway, whatever. And is listed to have 2 bedrooms. However, more days than not, there's 5 to 6 cars parked there. So, now, is it probably more bedrooms than that? More than likely. However, the auditor's site clearly states 2 bedrooms, no additions, and no upgrades, because I looked at it. Okay. The second one, which is right across the street from it, is 320 North Enterprise. This is a house that on most days has, again, 5 to 6 cars, and they, again, park along Ridge Street on that little grassy area to pick up the 6th parking spot. This house on the Wood County Auditor's site has 3 bedrooms. So this is happening, okay? So something needs to be put into place to try to bring this into check. One way that we may tackle this is this could also be incorporated into the rental registration and inspection that is being considered by the city. Part of that registration inspection process for rental properties could be stating how many residents and are in that dwelling and how many bedrooms that they are claiming. So now we'll have a good feel for what is reality versus what is being put out there by the auditor's site. Without the ability to inspect the homes, there is no way to know if rooms have been converted without proper permits into bedrooms. Again, I would like to point out that Judge Knapp stated only rooms in the original plans or those rooms that were altered by permits duly issued by said building official should be counted. I know that this is not an easy task when addressing this, but with some adaptation in our ordinances, we can resolve the issue. That's all I have to state.
Okay. Well, naturally, we can't address all of that this evening.
Very well understood. However, it's just some food for thought.
I would ask, though, if you would send a copy of your specific questions to me. I will endeavor to find answers for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next is Gage Stevens.
Hi, my name is Gage Stevens. I live on 224 Troop Ave. I've been a member of the BG community for the past 4 years and a student at BG in Environmental Action Group for the past 3.5. I just came to respectfully remind the council that of the table discussion about banning plastic bags. We would like to see less waste produced by BG, and if possible, maybe like a fee for plastic bags, if maybe not a ban. We think that would be an appropriate method to like lessen the amount of trash on the streets used by our community members in general. So yeah, just a respectful reminder to the council.
Thank you for your reminder.
Sarah Honick, or Honick, I don't know.
Hello, my name is Sarah Honick. I live at 707 East Worcester Street. I am the community liaison for the Environmental Action Group, and I just want to expand a little bit on what Gage was saying. So BGSU has successfully banned plastic bags on our campus since the beginning of the fall semester, and that has really worked out well. We've seen definitely an increase in discussion and awareness around the plastic bags and plastic issue in general. And I think that if BG City Council were to decide to have some sort of ban or fee, community members would also get that awareness and discussion as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Sarah, could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little more specifically how that's being done on campus?
So, I mean, basically, plastic bags were banned in the beginning of fall semester, and students were given reusable bags with the Green Fund money and as well as campus operations funds, I believe. So many students on campus that live in dorms were given one reusable bag, and that has significantly helped them, obviously.
So you see people carrying them around and using them?
Yes, definitely. And people are proud to be using them, and they've told us that, and they love what it stands for, and they're proud to be using that instead of plastic bags.
I have the impression that if you ask for one, they will give you one, because sometimes, I go to the union to eat lunch. Sometimes they'll say, "Would you like a plastic bag?"
Yeah,
Is
so
that right? So it's still optional some way? Or not?
Not really. The only
really.
reason that they do still have plastic bags in the union is because they had a bulk order of them that they had obtained right before the plastic bags were
They're trying to
banned.
get rid of them.
So they're trying to get rid of them still. It's not it's not that they're still ordering more. So yes, as of right now, there are plastic bags still at the union, but it's not that that's going to continue. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The last person is Adam Swift. What is it? Swint? Okay.
I'm Adam. I've lived at 724 South College Drive, number 8, for 3.5 years now.
Your last name, please.
Swint, Swint.
Okay, thank you.
And I've done my shopping at Aldi since I got here. So if anyone's familiar with Aldi, just bring a quarter and some bags with you. And I've seen like little to no lifestyle change just for doing that. So really, it's not difficult. If large states like California and New York can get something done like this, then I don't see any reason as to why a small town like BG can't get the same thing done. Another thing I want to point out is a lot of you guys have reusable bottles. That's kind of another thing, other than one on the end there.
I use that 4 times a day.
I did. I've refilled it several times.
There's a testament right there to just how easy it is to be able to reuse something and how easy it is to reduce the amount of waste that we're producing. So that's really all I got, just my 2 cents on the issue. So thank you all for having me.
Thank you very much. That was the final one?
Yes.
Okay. Unless something has changed in the last half hour, there is no new legislation.
That is correct.
Okay. That takes us to official reports. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Council. I do have one item for your attention. Recently, we had the resignation from the Planning Commission. I believe you're aware that Ryan Holley, longtime member of the Planning Commission, did resign his appointment due to personal reasons. And I'm pleased to report this evening that someone that is familiar to all of us has agreed to fill the remainder of Mr. Holley's term. Bob McComber, ex-council member, and familiar to all of us for his longtime involvement in our committee, has graciously agreed to serve on the Planning Commission. So I am asking your approval tonight on Bob's service to replace Ryan Holley for the unfinished term, or the current term, which would expire on May 31st, 2021.
President?
Yes.
I move that we appoint Bob McCumber to the Planning Commission to fill the term that ends May 31st, 2021.
I'll second that.
Okay. Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Great choice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bob's been a long-time asset as a city council member, and I think that we're lucky to get his knowledge and abilities on the cheap. So.
I agree. As most of you remember, Bob was on City Council and an active member of the planning processes that took place that kind of have led us to where we're at today in terms of the realignment of our zoning code. So I thought that it was an absolutely perfect fit, and as I mentioned, I was very grateful that Bob has agreed to serve.
And this could just be a voice vote, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of putting Bob to work, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Anyone opposed? Okay. Good job, Bob.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate your assent on that appointment. Other than that, I have no further report, but I am, of course, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for the mayor?
Thank you.
Yep. Next, Municipal Administrator, Ms. Tretter.
Good evening. I first start with a reminder that we have a session planned for you on March 18th at 6 p.m. And that is with the Montrose group. We will see you on the 16th, but since we're a couple weeks out, I thought I would remind you that is with the Montrose group. And they're going to be talking about opportunity zones, tax increment financing, and that will be at the Simpson Building at 6 p.m. All are welcome there. And that's a Wednesday, yes. Also to note that the State of the City is coming up. That is going to be on March 25th at our new Veterans Building. So that is the soft opening for the building. The event is sponsored by our Chamber of Commerce, and we appreciate them putting that together. The doors open at 7:30 a.m., and speeches start at 8 a.m., featuring our mayor and other city speakers as well. We do ask that you RSVP to the chamber, if you would please, just because that helps with the chair count that we put out that morning. There is a light breakfast provided as well. Mary, did I miss anything on that one? Okay. Fantastic. Last meeting, I had talked to you about reminding you the process that had been initiated in the past that had the Bicycle Safety Commission looking at the street network and proposing that to you. And some questions had been raised about how that is incorporated into our annual paving process. So we've prepared a few things for your review this evening. This first thing is going to be a map of bike street designations of bike lane sharrows that was put together by the Bike Safety Commission. And then, as we promised to you, we have taken our projects and overlaid them with our upcoming paving programs. So that is for you there. I want to explain a little bit about what it is you're looking at. And Joe, I believe, has already posted this map on the city's website. So anybody that's wanting to look at it, this is the city's website. This was what the Bike Safety Commission put together and then recommended to the council and is being used again as a template. It's being overlaid with our paving program. So the way this, if you refer to your white one, works, this has been put together looking at short-term, near-term, and long-term projects that are scheduled. And then we took what the Bike Safety Commission had recommended, and you'll see a column there. Now, to put that in writing a little bit, we have developed, and I do have extra copies of this if the press would like them. Joe will have the information for you afterwards. But these are implementation procedures, and I will run through these really quickly so that you know what we are proposing. Our recommendation going forward is that annually we will provide copies of what we've just given you. So it would be that map that you see updated with any sharrows or bike lanes that are completed and an update of the schedule. And so we'll be updating what it is that we do each year. Are you shorted, Kay?
Yeah, John Zanfordino's short too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Which one do you need?
He needs the map and the spreadsheet.
The spreadsheet, yeah.
Oh, okay, they're right here. Well, I took a copy, sorry. I didn't know there wasn't one for me. I apologize for that. So we will take those things and update those for you each year and with where the projects are, okay? So the staff is doing that each year. We would recommend that in cases where a bicycle treatment is recommended and where that treatment could potentially impact traffic, so for example, the removal of parking, that the city's Transportation and Safety Committee meet to discuss proposed treatments and modifications. So how does that look in practice? If you look on that sheet, what you'll notice is that there are some streets that have proposed recommendations. The first one is Thurston. Well, Thurston doesn't have parking, so it recommends sharrows be put on. We will put sharrows on Thurston per the recommendation here. That will be built into the project. That will be bid out as part of it. It's there. And just as a reminder, we had mentioned to you last time that Manville was paved last year. We will go back and put that on Manville this year as well, because that's fresh pavement. And so we're able to paint those on, and we will do that. And then we will connect that through so that it's that whole corridor there. So it just makes a lot of sense. Again, that's what the Bike Safety Commission recommended. The other two streets that are slated for paving this year are Clay Street and South Maple Street. Both of those have recommendations for sharrows. So it's our recommendation that the Transportation and Safety Committee would discuss those two streets. We can prepare for you options to look at the traffic impacts of those sharrows and make a recommendation moving forward. We would ask that if the Transportation and Safety Committee is going to take this recommendation and move forward in this way, that you meet as soon as possible, as these are 2020 projects. And we certainly would want to have that information out as soon as possible. Moving forward, and again, it's outlined more specifically in the policy. And John, did you get a copy of the policy? Did we get enough down there for you for this one?
Yes,
Okay.
thanks.
I apologize. Joe was going to put them out ahead of time, and I said, just throw it on my chair. So that was bad on me. I apologize. But if you are going to, moving forward, we would recommend that we do that ahead of time, that we don't wait until into 2020 to do it. So, for example, the 2021 meeting, perhaps we have in the fall. So we can be talking about things, and as we consider them, we'd have time for notice and hearings, or however it is that that committee wants to move forward. And from there, the Transportation and Safety Committee would make a recommendation, and that would be move forward from there. So that's our proposal. Back to you. And any questions on that?
President?
So, Lori, on this chart here,
Mm-hmm.
so the high and low regards priority, or what does that high and low mean?
The
Difficulty?
no, that is Bike Safety Commission noted things as high priority and low
Okay, so
priority.
that's from the bike.
Right, at the top of that column, you'll see where it says BSC, Bicycle Safety Commission,
okay.
and those are their recommendations to you. Council had previously asked them to put together this map so that as we were doing repaving, we had talked about that it made sense when we're repaving a road, that would be the logical time to look at a potential bike treatment to the road. And so they put together the map, they put together the priority. Now we had to overlay them on top of one another, come up with our procedure for how to move forward. We were asked to make a recommendation on that, and that's what we have presented to you this evening.
So yeah, I have another question from the map. It seems there's a where Worcester Street goes over the highway, and we've got the new lane, the path, but I don't see an orange line going over that. Wouldn't we want to mark that also, or?
Yeah, this is the stuff from
This
Bike
is before
Safety
that.
Commission.
This is before
right.
there was an
Okay, so
Right.
this can be revised to be a little more up to date. at some
Correct.
point.
Correct.
Okay, so this is not final. All right. Okay.
Oh, Lori?
Well, this isn't a current state. This is old.
Right, this was their priority list
This
that they.
doesn't reflect what's going on right now. This
No, I
reflects
understand
priorities.
that, but I'm just wondering. I just see some gaps like this here that it seems that we should be able to do, and so I'm just wondering why it's not marked. My
Because,
question.
probably because no work's required there. I don't, this is their product.
Could we have someone speak to it?
If you have a specific area you want us to
Or
look
maybe-
at, we can look at something.
Yeah,
But
I'm just looking at
again, we're trying to
the
we're
continuity
talking
to go
about.
along Worcester to connect Worcester to Meyer and the.
When
apartments
was
and-
this map originally made? Lori, do you know? I'm sure these recommendations weren't made today.
Right, they made the recommendations last summer.
Okay.
And then they were referred to City Council, the Transportation and Safety Committee.
Okay.
The Transportation and Safety Committee sent them to the administration and said, when you do roads, apply these. What we hadn't closed the loop on yet is that how are they applied? Again, something like Thurston, that's easy to apply. It's a share road, we put it on. When you get to a road like Clay, you have potential to look at traffic impacts because you have parking on there. So it seems like, okay, what is that next step? How do we look at that? And that is, our recommendation is that the Transportation and Safety Committee be the one to look at that impact and decide if there's further discussion warranted. So whether they choose to invite the Bicycle Safety Commission, whether, I really would leave it to that committee to make up its rules for how it wants to consider those things. What we were asked to do was to overlay the map with the paving schedule, and that's what we're presenting to you this evening.
And I would say that the overpass not being colored in is probably an oversight, and we can get you a red marker if you like.
That's the question.
Any other questions for Lori?
I think.
I'd just like to say thanks, Lori. I forget the dates, but, of course, the Bicycle Safety Commission did their excellent work last year, and then the Transportation and Safety Committee met shortly after that. So this is a product I've been looking forward to for quite some time, and I'm really happy to see the movement that's been that's occurred. So just to be most clear, then, Sharrows will be put on Manville and Thurston. Is there a timetable for that, or can we say when we can expect that?
Manville when it's warm enough. And Thurston when that project is completed. We are bidding that out. Thurston is a bid project. So we don't have that schedule for that this year, or that schedule yet.
Great. Well, I think those are great, and those are significant roads, and I think that those roads are really important for a lot of the apartments that Bowling Green has. So I think that's a great movement forward to having some interconnectivity as we continue to develop this. So thank you very much.
Let me ask another. This map this reflects the commission's goals and did what we asked them to do, but it would be helpful. Is there a map of completed, we have a bicycle map that shows in the city, on a website somewhere or Parks and Rec that shows what ground truth is right now? And if we don't, I would suggest that at the end of every year, we create one that just shows what the actual paths are, where the Sharrows are, where the bike lanes are, and update it once a year, maybe at the end of the year, or at the end of the paving season, whenever that happens to be. I don't think any more frequently than that is necessary. But I would ask that maybe we start that at the end of this year. And anyway, that I think that would avoid the confusion. It would separate ground truth from the goals and objectives.
Currently on the bike safety, they have recommended best routes through town, but of course Sharrows haven't, we've only had those for a few years, so we can pass that along to Bike Safety Commission to potentially update that map and work with them on getting a product that would show, again, their preferred, their recommended routes through town. If you notice, there are a lot of share the road signs, throughout town, and maybe I'm using the wrong wording, but
just something that shows where we are on an annual basis. And again, I personally don't believe more frequently that is necessary.
Okay.
Lori?
Yes.
Bikes may use full lane.
Bikes may use full lane. I knew we had changed the sign. I couldn't think what it was. Thank you.
It might be too late in the process, in which case I certainly understand. Is it possible to send the bid out for Thurston with a contingency or with and without the Sharrows to get the cost of adding the Sharrows to Thurston, and then also the cost of applying them on Manville as well?
We'll be getting quantities. Manville's going to be done in-house with paint, so it'll be with city crews in-house. And Thurston, every bid we get always has quantities in it. So
we can back it out and see how much it costs to.
Yes.
Okay, good. And is it too late for a discussion on, and I think everybody here knows the definition of what a Sharrow is, but the nomenclature for Sharrow, almost with the word row and share, you think of it as being perhaps a lane. It is a decal on the street that has a bicycle and basically chevrons or arrows. So in terms of, you have a before and an after picture of a street. Adding Sharrows simply adds those decals to the street. It's not as extensive as adding like a full bike lane, which can get quite expensive. So I think that's a distinction worth making. And Lori, I just wanted to thank you. This is very good, very helpful. And when it comes to council committee reports, I'll announce the meeting that you've been referring to.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess I do have one more. Will Manville be from Napoleon to Worcester then?
Yes.
Yes. Great.
Joe, did I mischaracterize the I-75 overpass when I spoke earlier?
Come up to the microphone.
The request was to put together the map as recommended or requested by the Bike Safety Commission. That's what's in front of you.
Okay.
So the reason it wasn't annotated on there is because it didn't come from the Bike Safety Commission.
Okay.
Once we got your feel for what you have in front of you, we were going to do what Greg suggested, which is recommended and applied, and then add the multi-use path across 75.
And it's there, so.
Yes.
Path is there.
So,
Well,
yes.
now that I have you up here, are there any questions for Mr. Fawcett?
Seeing none, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Next we have the planning director, but I don't see her. Okay. Anyone have any specific questions or to be directed at the planning director? Okay. Parks and Rec? Anyone have any Parks and Rec questions? Okay. City Attorney, Mr. Marsh?
I thought I would try and address some of what Mr. Lager raised tonight, only because I have a sensitivity to this topic, and I'm always concerned when there's misinformation out there on this, because as some of the administration saw in an email I sent around last week, I think the interpretation of the judge's order always seems to cause confusion, and I'm not sure why. What the federal judge did in the Yoder case was not a recommendation. The judge found our zoning ordinance to be unconstitutional and struck it, and he replaced it with his own language, which was a limitation of one person per bedroom for occupancy in rental units. It's not confusing, and it's not hard to compute. And our zoning people are the people that have to do it. And you are correct that we used the county auditor's site to start with on what was permitted per property. The aspect of this that I think does cause confusion, and maybe rightly so, is the judge did not attempt to strike down or invalidate any pre-existing non-conforming uses that were already in place before the lawsuit and before zoning. So Heather's not here, but it runs in my mind we have about 330 of those. We know what they are. We have a file on every one of them downstairs. So if any member of the public wonders, and I'm not familiar with the two addresses you mentioned tonight, but if anyone has an address that they question about occupancy or whether or not it was a legal pre-existing non-conforming use, somebody in the floor below us should be able to answer that question pretty easy, because we have such a thing. We presented the whole thing to the judge. He was aware. I think we have 332, I believe. And those continue to exist legally. So it is entirely possible to walk past a house where maybe 5 people are living in a 2-bedroom home if it was legally pre-existing non-conforming before. And again, I don't know about those two in particular you raised, but that's entirely possible. But in terms of who enforces this, our code enforcement officer is always looking for over-occupancy. Most of you know he frequents the alleys and the trash cans and everything all around, especially the student area, a lot. And yes, when we find them, we prosecute them. It has always been my office policy that we do not prosecute the tenants, we prosecute the property owners. So sometimes we allow the tenants to stay until the end of a semester or even the end of a lease. But that doesn't mean we're not enforcing the code section. So sometimes that happens. But I just wanted to address some of those things tonight that were raised. And again, the two examples in particular, I guess somebody will have to get back to you on. But pre-existing legal non-conforming uses were still permitted to remain after the lawsuit. The only way I know of to get rid of those was attempted some years ago, and that would be to somehow create a phase out of those over a period of time. It worked for signs around here some years ago. That's how we did it. I'm showing my age now. But that's how we got rid of all the signs that used to hang out over Main Street and Worcester Street and Flash and all that stuff. But we actually phased them out over time based upon the at that time the IRS code on the depreciation period, so that we could avoid the issue of valuation for takings. So that by the time the code section had expired, at least on paper, the signs had zero value. Any questions about any of that?
I would just like to say that I would be interested in sitting down with you sometime in the not so distant future and taking a look at that 1988 proposed language.
Mm-hmm. I know I gave you a copy of all that one time. Yeah. And
related to that, Mike, if when you have the conversation with Mark, that was a while ago, perhaps
what?
IRS.
What are you saying?
Hey, I was on council. I'm in the same boat. Things may have changed. Maybe the it's not 30 years. Maybe it's 25 or whatever. So an update to make sure that it still accomplishes what we want.
Doable.
Or it is even doable. I think that the vibe that I'm getting without a formal vote is that there is some receptivity to getting the ball rolling on that. And that's of
for
course something
people who don't know what we're talking about, what Mark is talking about is in 1988, the First Ward Council member, one of Mark's predecessors, Don Pond, proposed a set of ordinances to basically phase out legal pre-existing non-conforming uses due to occupancy under the same theory we use for signs. At that time, real estate was what I call a 30-year property. I'm not a CPA, so I don't know if that's still true, but that's why we use 30 years as the phase-out time. And it did not pass, but that was the proposal at that time. And under the same theory that we use for signs, that if there's enough notice for the entire period of a depreciation time, then hopefully at the end there's zero value to any taking that might take place in a legal sense. That was the theory behind it. Yeah, we can talk about that.
Well, it appears to be a First Ward Council person issue.
Yeah.
So I look forward to picking up where Mr. Pond left off.
Okay.
Mr. President, I have another question while we have Mike up here. It's so unusual. I want to let you go. Just to get a grasp on how many are non-complying, you said about 330. About how many rental houses are estimated?
You mean how many of those are houses?
Well,
of those
houses,
332, I don't know.
And how many houses?
That could be anything. See, that could be a garage in the alley. Yeah. It could be non-conforming for some reason other than occupancy. That's the total package. Yeah, okay.
How many houses are there that are rented? Does anyone know that number?
Yeah, they know downstairs. I just don't know standing here. Of those 332, they know exactly how many of them are houses. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of that was presented to the judge in the lawsuit, and part of the reason he determined actually, we did too good a job, because part of the reason we lost is because he said, well, you know exactly what you've got in town, so you don't need something so arbitrary as a raw number. You ought to be able to determine the bedroom size for each property. And you know, back when this was done, when we created zoning, that probably wasn't possible. But now through the internet and because of the records in the county courthouse, it's really, in less than 5 minutes, you can know a lot about a property just by checking all the sites on the county's site. So it made sense what he did. I think it took us off the hook in a lot of respects. I think his decision was better than our zoning code, tell you the truth.
Mr. President?
Yes.
So, Mike, the Yoder case, was that cut and dried? 3 bedrooms in a house, 3 tenants. 4 bedrooms in a house, 4 tenants. So because of that...
As permitted. And Mr. Flager's right, an important part of the judge's order was not a throwaway line. It was as permitted by permitting authorities. So, you know, I've heard Rose talk about people putting a partition down the middle of a dining room and calling it 2 bedrooms. That is not what he was talking about. That is not what he permitted. And we don't permit that now.
So because it seems so cut and dried, that's why there is no need for an ordinance? It just seems like that is the law of the town?
It's a court order, and we knew that this was the year that the whole package of zoning ordinances was going to be reviewed anyway, and it was always our intention to incorporate this order into that somehow. But yeah, it's a court order, and I didn't feel the need to immediately do something since we knew this year was coming anyhow.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
So council has said that one of its goals is to have the zoning completed by January 1st, 2021, last day of this year. So we could have a new law.
Yeah, I would say with this portion of our zoning code, we'll probably get rid of all that stuff about numbers and we'll incorporate some language about bedrooms.
Okay.
But there will be somewhere between 0 and 332 exceptions.
Well, that predates me. That's pre-1975, and there's not much I can do about it. That's when we zoned the town, and those property owners or their predecessors were able to establish with evidence that their properties deviated from the zoning code pre that time. And each of those properties has a file, and probably there's copies of old leases or letters from neighbors at the time, that kind of thing. It's a lot harder today for somebody to try and claim they have a pre-existing non-conforming use, because it doesn't matter what happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago. The only thing that matters was 1974, so it's pretty tough to add to that list anymore. It's just a matter of managing the list, I think.
All right, any other questions?
I just want to say it's a real treat to have you speaking with us.
I don't know.
Do it again sometime.
See you next year. Okay, Utilities Director.
Just briefly, just wanted to give you a heads up that there will be a insert in the utility bills for this month, and you'll get something like this that says introducing utility inserts. I did make copies because you're going to get one at your house anyways, so you'll see it in the near future. But essentially, it's going to describe to you an online access for customers to get information about their utility usage. Historical usage, their current usage up to the day that the meter was read, which was better than what we had before. It'll give customers an estimate on what their bill projection will be at the end of that billing cycle. It will provide some ability for them to put in information about their residents and give feedback on recommendations for how they could lower their costs or save money, that kind of stuff. They can look at their past 12 months of billing usage. They can compare it to temperatures that were averaged for that month as well. So they'll be able to see and correlate how their usage adjusts or fluctuates with temperature. There's a lot more information that's available in the website. Again, it'll all be described in the brochure. There'll be a link on our homepage so customers can easily get to the site. There'll be a link to the Efficiency Smart webpage, which has rebates for energy efficiency, electrical appliances, those types of things for customers to take advantage of. Efficiency Smart website also has a similar type of portal where you can input information about your residents and get feedback about ways to lower costs. And that website actually has links directly to the rebates that you could take advantage of. But because these are two separate websites, they're really not able to link those. So we're not trying to cause any confusion, but there's actually two different tools for customers to utilize. Again, we've tried to provide a link to how they can get those rebates. Efficiency Smart, though, however, can't get access to our utility data. The websites just don't talk in that same manner. So I think the website that we have provided through our Aclara billing platform is better, more detailed for each individual customer because it's actually using their customer data to drive that information about what does the customer want to see, what is the inputs that they're giving, and it's actually using their billing data to give them that information back. So look for it out to be this month. We hope that customers can use it to educate themselves about their usage. And again, if you have any question about that, let me know once you've had a chance to use it in practice. Yes, sir.
Brian, you said current usage. Do you mean current or current now? Does it include water and
Both.
sewage?
It includes electric, water, and sewer.
Okay. And the second question is there safeguard in place where you can only ask about your particular resident?
So you have to have, all the information that we have there basically is public information. So you have to have the account number and you have to have the address, I believe. There is on here, it says how to get access to that information. It doesn't have any information about payment history or, what your past payment has been with us. But all the data on there is really public information. So if you came in today and wanted to know what your neighbor's usage is, that's all public record. So we don't give you the name on the account. We don't give you the past payment history. But if you wanted to know, like say, for example, before you rent a home or before you buy a home, what was that usage for the past 12 months? We really give that information to customers and to residents so that they know what at least the past resident experienced. Your usage may be very different than what the previous tenant was, but at least there's some reference and basis for you to make a decision based off of that, on what that property has seen before. So we've tried to be sensitive, and I've talked with Jackie in our business office about sensitive public information or sensitive information about our customers, and we've tried to make sure that nothing on there references information that isn't already available to the public.
But you do have to have their account number, not their name, but the account number?
Yeah, they have to have the account number to put on there. So again, the page kind of describes how you get access to the account. I've done it for my house.
Realtors are asked that all the time, so this is heavenly.
Yeah.
You can just ask the sellers what their account number is.
Yeah, so sometimes you may, as a realtor, you may want to have access to multiple houses. And so you could, if you had the account number for those houses, you could go up I think you can have up to 8 accounts or 8 utility accounts listed on your particular personal page. Then you delete those as you don't want to see those anymore. But as you get new homes, you could add those and share that with
even better.
Customers. Yeah, so
nice.
Landlords may want to use it as well if they're paying the bills for customers. They can get access to that data. It's only for residential and small commercial accounts. It's not for larger industrial type of customers or medium general service and above. It's also not for customers that only have a water meter. So, for example, we read the Village of Haskins water meters are read by us. Those are not included in this whole system. but it does cover the majority of our residential in-town type of properties, which is probably the majority of what people that will be using this. Most businesses know if they have questions about their utility usage or information like that, they call us and we talk them through it. So, yes, sir.
Brian, do you calculate like a budget the averaging over 3 years or something like that?
It will give you the past year's data. So if you want to compare this January to say last January, if you have usage in there, it will show you what that comparison is.
Do you allow customers to pay on a budget where they pay the same each month?
We do have a budget payment plan.
How do you calculate that?
So it's based off of their past 12 months billing
It's just
history.
on 12 months.
Yeah. So you have to have 12 months of service with us to use that that budget. The budget is, what based off of past information, but that really can vary based off of temperature. So if you have a hot summer this year, and so your budget amount goes up, maybe next year it's a cool summer, so your costs go down, but you're still paying off of that past 12-month history at a higher rate. So at the end of that 12 months, you may have a credit where your budget number. So the budgets really can fluctuate when you hit that 12-month period, and we have to readjust the budget. People think, well, the budget shouldn't change, and so it's a double-edged sword, I guess, so to speak. It's good in that people can predict for a period of time what their bill is going to be, and that's offered to any residential customer. So if you have an apartment or a house, whether you're renting or not, as long as you have 12 months of history, we can set you up with a budget plan. But the problem really comes is when you have a cool summer, so you get behind on your bills basically,
And you get a big bill.
and then the next year it's hot, and so we have to catch that up. We have to true up the account, and so people sometimes they'll complain and say, well, I'm on a budget. How can my budget change? And so, well, because your usage changed or the temperature was different. And so that can cause a little bit of sticker shock as well. So budget plan is not like a perfect scenario, but it does work for some people, and we offer that to those who want to take advantage of it. And,
Well, that's why I was wondering, have you considered calculating over a longer period of time just to even out the ups and downs, or is that done by AMP, or is that?
We do it internally with our own billing software. There is a budget plan that it calculates the budget plan for us. If we wanted to go in and try to change how that was done, I don't really know if a 3-year average would be better than a 12-month average, because again, it's going to be different numbers. You're basing it off of what your past history was versus what your actual usage is. It's going to change from year to year anyways. And if we had to go back in and reprogram some special software, customize the software to do that, it's probably going to cost us a lot of money and not be worth the time to do that. It's not easy to do that. And two, if you now start to require customers to have 2 or 3 years of billing history, well, now if somebody is at 12 months, they say, well, why can't I get?
I understand, but it could be done with over multiple. I'm just thinking in terms of, for instance, so that landlords could tell tenants what the expected usage would be, that if they could average over a longer period.
We can tell them that right now. If they wanted to know, again, if you want to know what the past tenant's usage was, we can tell you that today.
You can tell us that today.
Yeah,
Okay. Great.
no problem.
That's going to be available to people.
That's available. That was available years ago. It's been available.
It's just not being used.
It is being used. I just can't tell you how many people are using that. So if you as a resident want to know what was that apartment's usage for the past 12 months, we give that information. Okay. I can't tell you how many people have come in and asked for that information. It's on our website. It says right there on our utility website for renters especially. If you're interested in knowing what that apartment's history has been, call us and we'll tell you what the high and the low and the average is. So it's out there. People, if they see our website, they can get the information. There's really no magic to it. Just call us up and we'll
One more
give it to you.
question.
Yes, sir.
Have you tried to get the same information through Columbia Gas and provide both?
I deal in water, sewer, and electric. So I don't do.
I know it's not always. I've been trying for 3 years.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Okay.
Yeah, I don't do natural gas. Sorry.
Any other questions?
Not my department.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Next, we have Public Works Director, Mr. Kraft. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Kraft? Okay. Brings us to council committee reports.
Mr. President? The Planning, Zoning, Economic Development Committee met today at 6, right before this meeting, to discuss the zoning diagnostic presented at our February 11th meeting. We recommended moving forward with CalFE on our zoning code update in line with that diagnostic, and we should be presented with legislation authorizing that contract soon.
Mr. President, I just wanted to clarify, there seems to be some confusion about the next Community Improvement Committee meeting, so just wanted to make sure that at least the next two were mentioned tonight. Next Tuesday will be March 10th, and at 5 o'clock we'll have another public hearing. We have 5 to 6:30 scheduled for that public hearing. And I know of no speakers at this time, so it may just be an entire meeting of people addressing the committee. And on Monday, the 16th, March 16th, at 5:30, we have our anticipated panel discussion between the committee and 5 landlords from the Landlord Association. That certainly is not carved in stone. I would like to call that tentative. We have to get our questions to the Landlord Association in advance. My goal is to get that off tomorrow morning. And then once we get some feedback on the questions we formulated, we'll firm up the nature of that meeting. But the significant thing for tonight is those are the next two meetings or the scheduled times for that committee.
All right. The meeting on the 10th, originally that was scheduled for an hour and a half because it was anticipated that would be the meeting with the landlords. You want to shorten that meeting?
I think we should still show up at 5, of course, and if only 3 people come speak to us, it'll be a very brief meeting. But if there's a lot of people that want to speak that night, I'd still like to leave the hour and a half just to make sure we're giving everyone the opportunity to speak. But we will certainly not belabor the meeting. If there's just a handful of speakers, it will be terminated accordingly.
Any other reports?
Mr. President, in light of what Lori said earlier, I have set up a Transportation and Safety Committee meeting for 5 o'clock on April 6th. That is a council evening. And there are 2 items at least to be discussed. One is the street and bicycle interplay that was referenced by Lori earlier, as well as a preliminary discussion about the possibility of proceeding with investigation of a high-speed rail service through Bowling Green.
What's the date of that again?
That is April 6th at 5 o'clock. I apologize for it being at 5, but we do have a full schedule that night, and I thought it better to meet earlier on council night than have everyone come in on a non-council night.
And that April 6th is the discussion of rail through Bowling Green?
That's one of the 2 items.
And the other topic was?
The interplay between street repairs and bicycle paths, complete streets.
And that's early because the county commissioners are going.
Right.
Right. Any other council committee reports? Okay. Brings us to the reading of legislation. Okay.
There is no legislation for first reading, so we'll
Good
move
job,
to
Ken.
second reading. Ordinance number 8828 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to accept a utility easement from TBCH Properties Limited. Ordinance number 8830 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to lease city-owned spare conduit infrastructure not currently necessary for municipal purposes. Legislation for third reading. Resolution number 3755 for third reading. Resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio, to file a capital and operating plan for the years 2020 through 2023 with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants through the U.S. Department of Transportation as authorized under federal transit laws as codified 49 U.S.C. Section 5311, financial assistance for other than urbanized areas.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we adopt Resolution 3755.
Second.
All right. Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. Could you call the roll?
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Leontis,
Yes.
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 3755 is adopted.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we amend Resolution 3756 by substitution.
Second.
All right. Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Could you call the roll?
Leontis,
Yes.
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh.
Yes. Okay. The motion is carried. So Resolution 3756 is amended.
So, resolution number 3756 for third reading. Resolution authorizing the filing of a proposal and/or application with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants through the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Transit Administration as authorized under federal transit laws as codified 49 U.S.C. Section 5311, financial assistance for other than urbanized areas, and funds available from the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program, executing a contract grant for the fiscal year 2021 Ohio Elderly and Disabled Transit Fare Assistance Program, and in 5339 and/or 5311, funding for capital and/or operating assistance and the Ohio Transit Partnership Program, and executing a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation upon grant proposal and/or application approval.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we adopt Resolution 3756 as amended.
Second.
Okay. Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'm just glad that we only give it 3 readings because that's a lot for Kay to read.
And I'll just say, my understanding is the reason that the amendment that it had to be amended is because state language changed.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Could you call the roll?
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Leontis.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 3756 as amended is passed.
Resolution number 3758 for third reading, resolution adopting the Bowling Green Fire Division 5-year strategic plan.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we adopt Resolution 3758.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. Could you call the roll?
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Leontis,
Yes.
Phipps.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 3758 is adopted.
Resolution number 3759 for third reading, resolution adopting the Bowling Green Fire Division standards of cover for 2019.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we adopt Resolution 3759.
Second.
Okay. Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. Could you call the roll?
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Leontis,
Yes.
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 3759 is adopted.
Ordinance number 8825 for third reading, ordinance authorizing the municipal administrator and the utilities director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for the supplying and cleaning of uniforms for the Public Works Department and the Utilities Department.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to adopt Ordinance 8825.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, could you call the roll?
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Leontis,
Yes.
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 8825 is adopted.
Ordinance number 8826 for third reading. Ordinance accepting an easement from Mauer Rentals LLC and dedicating the property for right-of-way purposes.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we adopt ordinance 8826.
Second?
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Leontis,
Yes.
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 8826 is adopted. Is there any other business to come before City Council this evening?
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
move that we adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.